All right, back for another beer review, and today I will be reviewing a beer from the Hamm Brewing Company, and they are under the Molson Coors umbrella, and they are headquartered in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and this is their Hamm's. So this is an American Adjunct Lager that comes in at 4.7% alcohol by volume. No IBUs listed in time of review. I don't know exactly how old this can is, but on the bottom of the can, there is a best by date of January 3rd, 2022. And as I'm reviewing it, it's about a month from that date, so we should be good. And I want to give a huge thanks and shout out once again to a very good friend of mine and viewer of the channel, Jeff, aka No Jinx, for hooking me up with this one. I hung out with Jeff and his wife recently in the Western New York / Finger Lakes region, and he brought me a care pack, and he included a can of Hamm's. Why? Well, he was looking for like a low ABV, cheap kind of crusher in Michigan to buy, and I don't remember the entire story, so Jeff, you can correct me if I'm wrong, which I am a lot. But he said he was at a local brewery. It was either the Holmes Brewery in Ann Arbor or another brewery, and he asked the brewers there, like, what do they drink for like basically a macro lager that's cheap and refreshing and good, and they said Hamm. So he picked it up, and he's been digging on it for I think like the last year, maybe a couple years, and gave me a can of it because we do not get Hamm's here in the West New York area. And it's just funny, on the label here it says America's classic premium beer, born in the land of blue sky waters, brewed in true family tradition from purest water and choicest barley malt, grain, and hops. So the Hamm Brewing Company is now owned by Molson Coors. And to me, I feel like this beer is like the Midwest version of like Genesee beer, where it's one of those regional beers that people drink instead of the bigger macro beers, and I'm fine with that. I can get down with some Hamm's most likely. I can get down with Jenny. I like Miller High Life, Coors Banquets. Hopefully this is pretty delicious. We'll see. Now, full disclosure, American Adjunct Lagers are not my favorite style. So when it comes to styles like this, I usually rate them a little bit lower than most. But I let you know that up front because when I rate it, I don't, you know, a lot of people come and be like, oh, it's super low. Well, I'm rating on my overall scale, not to style. Typically, the highest I give American Adjunct Lagers are like 3.5, maybe 3.75 if I love it, but typically like 3.5 is like top. It doesn't, ratings don't matter. We'll see if this is solid. So yeah, it's basically straw golden straw golden color, crystal clear, a lot of carbonation bubbles, had about 1.5 fingers, now is 1 finger of this soap sudsy bright white head. Yeah, it looks like your typical lager beer. Let's get a nose. So they're brewing this one with barley malt, hops, yeast, water, and also corn. I believe it's corn syrup. Yeah, so it has that grainy, corny type of American Adjunct Lager smell to it. It smells sweet. There's a little bit of like a touch of like a lemon, citrus note, slight. A slight, I would say more like a floral or earthy kind of hop note. But yeah, these, again, this style is not meant to be complex. You want them to be relatively cheap. You can crush a lot of them. A lot of us got into craft beer because we wanted more flavor from a beer or we wanted something different. But now that I've drank craft beer now for almost 12 years, I circle back to beers like this, the Miller High Lifes, the Coors Banquets, the Jenny Cream Ales, quite a bit because they're not that expensive. They're super fucking cheap. And on top of that, they can be really refreshing in the right circumstances. So I'm hoping that's the case for this one. Thanks again to Jeff, and cheers, everyone. So when I drink a macro American Adjunct Lager, I want two things. One, for it to be really refreshing, and two, for it to have no off flavors. I'm not tasting any off flavors in this on the first taste, and it's super refreshing. It really is. Body on this one's like higher side of light body, lower medium, but more higher side of light body. It's not super thin at under 5% at 4.7. I think it's appropriate for the ABV. The mouthfeel, it's crisp, it's clean, it's ridiculously refreshing. The taste right from grainy corn sensation. Pass through the palate, I'm getting like a little bit of like a red apple core, very slight. Maybe a touch of like a lemony citrus, more of like a red apple core. On the back of the palate, finishes semi-dry with a mild bitterness, has a little bit of like an earthy lager funk type of finish to it. Yeah, I mean, this is, I mean, right now, I could easily drink this on camera, no doubt. And I won't because I'd like to kind of sit and savor this one a little bit because I don't get Hamm's in my area. But yeah, it's really nice. It's in that Genny Cream Ale, Miller High Life kind of realm for me, where if this was available locally, this would be a beer that sometimes I would buy just to have a fridge beer, or if people were coming over or I was going to a party or something and wanted something that's I enjoy more than, say, the regular macros or the big boys, so to speak. I guess Miller High Life is a big, I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's inoffensive. It's crisp, really crisp on the palate, super clean, no off flavors. Yeah, it's solid. So again, here's where we go with the ratings. For me, if I was to do this to style, like American Adjunct Lager, it'd be like a 4.5 out of 5. I mean, this is one of the better ones I've had. It's very inoffensive. Now, if it warms up a little bit, it might be a little offensive. But most of these, when they're cold, you end up drinking them in 5 to 10 minutes because they're super refreshing and they don't last that long where they warm up. But yeah, personal preference. I have no problems giving Hamm's. I'm going to give that a 3.25 out of 5. That's where I land with it. Now, keep in mind, Genny Cream Ale is one of my favorite low ABV, cheap macro type of beers. And I give that a 3.25. I gave Miller High Life, I think, like a 3.5. I believe I gave Coors Banquet 3.5. I think I like those a little bit more than Genny, but I like supporting Genny here more locally because of their ties to the West New York area. So this is kind of in the realm for Genny Cream Ale for me, even though Genny Cream Ale's not technically a lager, but you know, they're all in the same realm. So I think this is actually well made. So don't take my rating as anything other than that's my personal rating. I think this is really good for the style. If you love American Adjunct Lagers, I don't know how you would dislike this one. I really don't, but you know, to each their own. Price and availability, I'm sure like a 30 rack of this is probably like 15 bucks. You know, a case maybe is like 10 to 12. I don't know. I'm sure it's quite cheap for this beer. And availability, this is where all of you out there come in. I do not see this here in the Western New York area. I think this is more of a Midwest thing. Hamm's was originally from, I believe, St. Paul, Minnesota, and now they're owned by Miller Coors out of Milwaukee. And I'm sure this is like one of those Midwest regional beers where you can see it all over the place. But once you start venturing a little bit further south, further southwest and east, you know, it starts to dry up in terms of their distro. So yeah, pretty good American Adjunct Lager, 4.7%. You really can't taste the alcohol like most of these. You just know it's a beer. And there's nothing wrong with drinking beers like this, you know. I am a craft beer lover at heart, but I do love trying out new macro beers or American Adjunct Lagers that I grew up not really liking. It was one of the reasons I got into craft beer. And beers like this kind of bring me back where it's like, these beers are actually pretty solid for what they are, and I enjoy them. So if you've had this one before, definitely let me know what you think about this one. Huge thanks to Jeff, again, for hooking me up with some Hamm's. Appreciate it. To the next one, everyone. Cheers.